Many mortgage brokers want to start podcasts. It's a great way to generate leads. It's a great way to build a network. And in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how to start a podcast in 5 easy steps. Step 1, which is developing a podcast concept, podcast recording equipment and software. We're going to look at uploading your first episode, how to launch that podcast, and how you can market and grow your podcast so you can increase your audience. So let's dive straight into it. So step 1, we're going to develop a podcast concept and format. So the podcast concept is all about what it is you're trying to actually create. What are you trying to do with your podcast in order to be successful with it? So the first thing you want to do is you want to identify your podcast goal. So are you as an advisor trying to generate leads for your mortgage business? Are you trying to be recognized as an industry thought leader? Are you trying to network, or are you trying to build a community? These are normally the 4 things that people use podcasts for. And depending on what your goal is, it will change the type of show you do. For example, if you're trying to generate leads, you want to be probably doing shows that are focused towards nurturing an ideal client. If you want to be recognized as a thought leader and industry leader, you're probably going to want to be talking about things within the industry in a more B2B way so that other people see you as someone very knowledgeable. If you're trying to network and hopefully get referrals, then you want to start to interview people, and you might want to interview people in the local area. And if you're trying to build a community, again, you might want to interview people in a local area, but build it around some sort of community group, Facebook group, and potentially offline environment. All 4 of these things are very different, and the type of show you make and the type of people you interview and the process around it is all going to be very, very different depending on what you want. So knowing what you want straight off the bat is important. So many people, when it comes to podcasts, go, I want to start a podcast, and then that's it. And they dive in, they start the podcast, and then they wonder why they're getting nothing from it. And this is why most podcasts fail. So you really need to understand what it is you're trying to achieve. Which brings me on to the next point, which is pick a theme or topic. So this isn't going to increase the chance of people listening. If it is, you want to build a network, so the goal is to network to increase referrals, is that theme or topic around local businesses? Is it around local heroes? Is it around women in the workplace within the local area? Is it around people who are other enthusiasts around certain sports? All of these things are important because it's going to increase the chance of it being shared. If it's just general show, again, not going to be very good. And then the third thing to look at is naming your podcast. Think about keywords and search potentially, if that's what you're after. My podcast, for example, is Mortgage Business Mastery, and then it's sales, marketing, and processes for mortgage advisors. There's a reason why I call it that, is it's search-based. If you go down the route of weird, obscure names, the issue with this is it becomes very hard for people to know what it is you do. So now we need to look at your podcast format. Now, the format is broken into styles and lengths. The first one we have is an interview show. These are 2 people talking, speaking to each other, back and forth. This can be remote, this can be in location, whatever you want to do. But that's an interview show. And it's pretty much usually a host and a guest. Absolutely brilliant for networking. The second one you have a solo show. It's just me on my own talking to a microphone. And this is great for lead nurture. Now, why is this good? Is because it's very intimate. It's just you and the listener. But a solo show is great for nurture. So if you're trying to get people to know, like, and trust you more within being an advisor, within a mortgage broker, solo shows are brilliant for that. We utilize many of these in different ways with clients of mine. Some clients actually have multiple shows for different things. And once you know how to do them from this thing, it's actually easy to do many of them. Then the final one you have, this is what I'd call the conversational show. So it's multiple hosts showing up on a consistent basis to talk about certain topics. It means that it requires 3 or 4 or 2 or however many people to be as committed to the project to the same level. And that's very difficult. They are the 3 type of shows. You need to decide for you which one you want. Keep going back to what is the goal and then pick the right style that fits my goal. Which brings me on to the other part of the podcast format, which is show length. One of the things we need to look at with the length of your show is, can you edit it and produce it? So let's say that a show is, say, an hour, Remember, you've got to do the prep work before, that might be an hour, and then you're going to have to do the post work afterwards, that might be an hour. So an hour show might be 3 hours to produce. The other thing to think about as well is the length of time that your listener is going to need. We have a short show, which is 0 to 15. This is ideal for solo podcasts, and it means you can also, if you want to, create multiple a week. The medium length is anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes. And I put here, this is the sweet spot for many interview shows and conversational shows. And then you have the long shows, which is anything over 45 minutes. And I put here very common, but can be seen as too long. We see things like Diary of a CEO and all of those type of podcasts. And Joe Rogan, who's the main famous podcaster, who some of his shows are like 4 hours long. I don't know a single person who listened to a full Joe Rogan podcast. And the ideal sweet spot actually is, for ideal listening, it's 21 to 22 minutes. And the reason why that is 21 to 22 minutes means that on a short commute, if someone's going to listen on a commute or a short dog walk or anything like that, that's about one episode. On a long commute or a long dog walk, that's going to be 40, 45 minutes. It means you're going to get those 2 episodes in, so they can binge twice if they want to think about how people are going to consume it. So this is now on to step 2, which is all about the podcast recording equipment and software. I'll break down the equipment that you need, and then I'll show you examples of the stuff you can actually buy. So what you actually would get as of right now when recording this. With equipment, all you need is a microphone, a headset, and a laptop. You have a webcam if you want to do video podcasting. We need a interview recording software. We need audio editing software if you want to do that. If you're doing video, we need video editing software, and we also need a hosting site. I'm going to show you how all of these work in a minute. So when it comes to microphones, the Elgato Wave 3 is, in my opinion, the best mic you can get on the market right now. They are what we call a USB mic, so they plug straight in to your computer via USB. If you're looking at headphones, these are the best budget podcasting headphones. They're absolutely brilliant, and again, very affordable. And then if we're going to go down the route of a video podcast, this is probably the best webcam you can get, in my opinion, at the moment. Very easy to set up, and it gives you a wide angle lens. Let's talk about the software you need. Now, if you're going to do it on a budget, Zoom is probably the easiest way to do it. You can just record interviews straight into Zoom. That being said, it's not going to give you the best quality video. It's not going to give you the best quality show. So if you want to invest a little bit in some software that's going to help you really do great with your podcast, then the one I recommend for that is StreamYard. So you can see people on the screen here. You effectively can customize it to look exactly how you want. You can pause it, you can stop it, you can record in 4K if you want to. You can do loads of cool things. You can get individual videos from each person. You can clip in there, so make clips from there. You can bring slides in and screen sharing. To be honest, very similar to how I'm making my video here. You can do all of that, and you can even link it to live streaming, so you can stream your podcast live. So StreamYard is one of the best tools I have seen. I've used it for years, and many of my shows and my podcasts are shot on StreamYard. If you want to know more about StreamYard and you want to use those, I do have a link to them. It'll give you a free 14-day trial to their premium package. You can just sign up for that for free, go and check it out, and then see if it works for you. Now, when it comes to editing your podcast, both video and audio, there's only one tool I recommend, and that is a software called Descript. So Descript is just a monster when it comes to editing. The great thing about Descript is you can edit your videos like they are Word documents. You can remove word gaps, you can remove fillers, all AI. The whole thing is ridiculous. All my clients use this. You can improve your audio quality. You can even do things where if you've missed the word or said something wrong, it learns your voice and it changes the word to what you actually want to say with you saying it. I mean, it's kind of scary, to be honest. So Descript as well, I've got a link, and that's in the show notes too. So if you want to use that as well, feel free to check that one out. Now, the only other one we need to talk about is the hosting site, and I'm going to talk about that in step 3. So step 3 is all about how to upload your first episode. I'm going to show you exactly how you would upload an episode and everything you need to do when it comes to creating this podcast. So how do people listen to your show? People listen through what is known as podcast directories. The most famous ones you'll know for that is Apple and Spotify. You don't upload your podcast to Spotify or to Apple. To get your show onto those, you need to look at a thing which is called podcast hosting. This is a site that allows you to upload your show to it, and then it gets linked to all of the places that people can listen. The easiest one is to use Spotify for podcasters. This is a free hosting platform. And I'm going to show you how you upload a show right now. This is what it will look like. This is just an empty podcast. I've got nothing, I think, on it at all. To upload your episode, all you have to do is press on the plus button in the corner, and then it's going to allow you to upload something here. So it's going to say upload your video, podcast, or audio. All you have to do now is select the file and you just upload the audio file. You can upload video too, it doesn't really matter. And once it's uploaded, you're going to be given these options. Title, let's just put test for now. And then the description, I'm going to paste in the links I already have saved somewhere else. So that's all there to go. And then you have the publish. So you can schedule it. So I'm going to schedule it for whenever. It's not, got no swearing in it. It's important, by the way, if you do have swearing, it's very important that you tick that box. Apple will kick you off if you don't. And if there's no promotional content such as ads or product placement, if there isn't, then you press no as well. You'll see it says next. Ignore all of that. Just press next. And then it will give you the show to review. And then all you have to do is press schedule. Now you're set to go. So that's how you upload your show. So if you're going to optimize your show and you want it to perform better, then here are the 3 things you want to look at. So for titles, make it clickable and make it searchable. So make the title, don't just be John Smith interview. Have something that's very clickable. Searchable is make it something that people are going to look for. You can use AI for these. Show notes. If you want to do show notes, keep SEO in mind when you do it. They do rank and they do help. Keep them short. Don't just write a blog in there. The final bit is the transcription. So when you use the script, the transcription will be there too. By the way, the script will be able to AI generate you a title, it will AI generate you descriptions, and it will AI generate you a transcription. And you can ask it to optimize for all these things. So if you want to upload a transcription to your website or insert that transcription into a blog that goes onto a website, that's going to be really valuable too. Let's talk now about podcast artwork. One of the easiest ways to create podcast artwork, honestly, is just go to Canva. So go onto Canva, search podcast cover art. It's going to come up here then with a load of them that you can choose from, and you can just go in there, click on them and edit them. Very simple to do. Any of you who are au fait with Canva, that's great. And if you're not, then you want to check out my tutorial video on Canva, but very simple to use and to do, and just change your podcast cover art. So when it comes to tips for what your podcast cover should look like, quite easily, just, is it clear? So is it clear what it does? If I look at it, can I make sure very clearly what it is? Number 2, are you trying to promote your personal brand? If you are, then maybe your image should be on there. If you're not, then don't put your image on there. And is your image relevant? So do people care who you are? And then the 3rd one is, does it look great? Your podcast cover art is going to be on a phone, most likely. So if you look at the size of the cover, it's really small, really, really small. But this one is the Mortgage Advice Podcast. That is an example of like what not to do. So if you actually look on screen there, it's way too much happening. It's not very clear. The reason I picked it up is he hasn't done one since 2021. That's what people are going to see on their phone. Be careful with that. Remember that it needs to be clear. I just want to stop the video quickly just to say that if you want to get these slides that I'm talking about here so you can have a guide for this, then please feel free to head over to the pinned comment here or go into the description. There's going to be a link for you to download them. Let's get back to the video. Now, step 4, we're going to be talking about launching your podcast. How do you actually get it off the ground? The strategy is not as simple as just post it out and they will come. Not at all. So the 4 phases we have is phase 1. We've got is make sure you have 10 episodes recorded, edited, and ready to go before you launch the show. The reason why you want 10 ready to go is because that's going to give you a buffer when you start. So you want to probably be having a real heavy month of interviewing lots of people. Also, the good thing about this is that as you do this, you'll be quite good at interviewing people by that point. Phase 2 is, if you're going to launch it this week, you're going to launch 3 episodes on a Monday. And then what you do is then you release 2 more the same week. So you might release 3 on a Monday, and then you might release 1 on a Wednesday, and then you might release 1 on a Friday. Now you've got a binge-worthy amount of content in that first week. It gives them enough to get them hooked. From there, in phase 3, you then start to release your next episodes, one a week for the next 5 weeks. You are now 5 weeks ahead of your publishing date. And the goal with podcasting is always to be ahead of your publishing date. If you are not ahead of your publishing date, you're going to get yourself in trouble. All you want to do then is you start to reach out to new guests or record solo episodes and you start to fill those in. And as long as you're around 2 to 3 weeks ahead, you're okay. Anything less than 2 to 3 weeks, you're in a bit of a danger zone, personally. That's how you launch a show and you stay on target. Mistake people make, they just jump straight in and they start recording them and then publishing them, which leads me on to the final step of this, which is how to market and grow your podcast. You want to try and generate leads or grow your network or whatever it is at the beginning your goal was that you established. This is what you've come here for. And so once you've set it all up, how do we actually make it work? Well, to scale it, there's 3 things that I talk about that I think are really important for you to understand. First one is process. If you want to be able to do something, you need to make sure that you can be consistent with it. And the only way you're going to be consistent with your podcast is by building a process. The process will reduce friction. Maybe it's the same interview questions or it's the same preparation. Once you've done once, you don't have to keep doing it again. The second thing is you need to create something that's repetitive. If it's repetitive, it's easy for me to create because my brain is in those buckets. And secondly, it's easy for the listener to know what they're going to expect. And so they're going to share it and become reliant on it, which is really valuable. So that's the first way you're going to scale, is by being able to reduce the effort it takes to make the show. The second one you have is batching and scheduling. Your job is to make sure that you do not fall into pod fade, which is the show stops. You always want to be ahead of the publish date, and you are racing alongside that. The moment you're behind it, it's very hard to get back on that saddle, and that's where podcasts die. The 1 out, 2 in rule is something I follow pretty much with all my content. But what that means is for every one that's published, I make 2. Let's say it's an interview, you're interviewing 2 people a week, but you're releasing weekly. That means that you are going to be ahead of the game. We'll reach a point, if you stick to this, you'll be way too far ahead. And so there's no more than 13. So once you've reached that maximum amount, you just drop down to 1-to-1. So 1 in, 1 out, 1 in, 1 out, and that's fine. So once you've hit that 13, it actually becomes significantly easier. And it's only then, if you start getting into that danger zone, I need to start to ramp that up again. And the final thing you have is social media. You need to promote your show on the social media to reach new people. Now, some of the best ways to do social media and promote your show on social media, if it is a video podcast, is to clip content. Now, one of the best ways to clip content is to use something like Opus Clip. You can just literally upload a YouTube link or a video in there, and then it will automatically AI clip it. So it creates these type of videos. And these are the videos that you see. Look, there's loads. You see these all the time on social media. These are very, very useful for growing your show. It is used as a way to promote in your stories. So you don't want to put them in your main feed, because in your main feed, it will flood that as a mortgage advisor. Your goal for this is to try and make sure your main feed is filled with mortgage related stuff. But if you're interviewing, say, local business owners and you're trying to push your brand out there, creating clips, putting those clips in stories and sharing them and tagging those people in, there's a high chance they're going to share those on their stories, pushes you to new people. The other thing you can do is you can create, for every interview, create 10 clips, send those clips to your guest. They're most likely going to promote it and they'll tag you in it. And then again, you're bringing more eyeballs to you. That is how you use social media to do it. It's very simple, very, very effective. Now, if you want to learn how to promote your mortgage business and generate free leads on Facebook, then check out this video on screen here, which is where I break down a great strategy that does exactly that.